You're listening to the Bathtub Refinishing Podcast. Powered by BathTubGuys Refinishing. We discuss the refinishing industry, interview owners and operators, and give tips to business owners and entrepreneurs. Now, here's your host, Daniel Montalvo.
All right, guys. Welcome back to the Bathtub Refinishing Podcast. As you can see, first thing you're going to notice, different venue. So we're at the Cigar Room in Zephyr Hills. Kind enough to let us go ahead and use their spot. Let me turn the music down here. And special guests. Of course, Danny from Alliance Bath.
Yes,
his wife is here as well. And we have Carlos from A Kings Renovation. Jonathan. Gilbert, which is Jonathan's business partner, and we work together with Bathtub Guys of Tampa as well. So, it's going to be a little bit of a different vibe for the show. We're doing it off, regular location, and we got some really cool guests here. Also, Ruben is going to be joining us later from Surface Pro Refinishing.
ATL.
Yeah, he's coming down here. So,
Shout out Ruben.
Danny flew over here. So,
Thank you, Danny. Thank you guys for making the trip.
yeah.
Big deal for us.
Thank you, Gilbert.
And we had to do it big. So we have the cigars ready to go, drinking, hanging out. So,
We got the bourbon.
yeah,
We got the pasteles.
I know.
Capurrias.
There's a food truck out here. So if you're ever in the area, in the Zephyr Hills, Florida area, Tampa area, they have a food truck right here next to the venue too. So it's been cool.
It's fire.
So Danny,
Yes, sir.
how are you, bro?
Man, I'm good, man. I'm good. Life is good. Different changes, but we're making it, right? We're breathing, right? Stumbling a little bit, just like everybody. Reconstruction mode, but Alliance is killing it right now, man.
And we talked to that a little bit off camera. We are having some really good conversation. They probably could have been on camera, but we'll touch base on it a little bit.
Not all of it, though.
Not all of it. But I think it's interesting, even for some people listening out there that might think like, they have to contemplate these kinds of restructures sometimes.
Yeah.
And, it's good to know that, someone even who's very successful like yourself, sometimes you got to do it, and you got to, like you said, throw the grenade in there and just make the change.
Yeah.
I just feel like, that's something that's valuable for people out there to hear, because we've been going through a similar thing. We didn't talk about his situation as much, but it's kind of similar, where it's like he has his core guys, right? But some of the other ones might not necessarily be, necessary all the time.
Yeah.
So what was the final decision making that we just have to bite the bullet and make the full change?
Good question, man. Good question. So since the last time we met, we, as a business, we got together and we realized there was things that we were doing, I think, wrong.
Okay.
For lack of a better term, business-wise. So my wife, Michelle, came up with the solution, and I thought it was the greatest solution. We literally had to get a grenade and just throw it in the bunker and just blow it up. We had to start from scratch, man. And right now, Alliance Bath is in the middle of reconstruction mode, right? Rebuilding, restructuring everything that we did from day one. Now, from the way we're dealing with technicians, customers, internally, admin, mainly technicians, right? We were working a little bit backwards, right? Something that worked years ago but wasn't working now.
I got you.
Right? So ultimately, I'll let Michelle answer this, but we had to do something that was going to get us out of a hole. Because I think what we were doing initially, we were digging a hole for ourselves, a hole that we were probably not going to be able to get out of.
Okay.
I mean, essentially, I think he answered the right way. I mean, I think, like he said, things from years ago that were working for many businesses, I think, that's kind of what your situation is right now, too. It was just, for us internally in the office, payroll was getting higher, but the dividends weren't coming in, was ultimately the final decision. And it just became to a point where you want to be a great company, you want to do right by your employees, but it was starting to do wrong by the owners, where the owners weren't getting paid anymore, and the owners were sacrificing more than what we should, and there was a lot of greed on the other end.
So
It's actually costing you.
Yeah, it was costing us.
dangerous trajectory, pretty much. I see what you're saying. So, that's one of the things where thankfully I recognized it a little bit early on our end, because our operation's a little different. Obviously, you guys have a bigger scale. But it's like I tell Jonathan, the same problems present themselves. It's just the size,
Yeah.
He's having the issue, and it's funny because when we talk about it, I'm like, I'm having the same issue. And then I'm talking to you, it's like, we're having the same issue. And it's just doing business.
It's the challenge of scaling.
It's the
It
challenge of
doesn't
scaling.
matter what point you're at.
That's ultimately what it is, man. Because I think for us, in order for us, I mean, there's levels to every business.
Yep.
Right. For reglazing, we started just like everyone else has started, right? Answering the phones, right? Doing the work, right? Spraying.
True owner operator.
True owner operator. But I think we hit a plateau a couple years ago. We hit a plateau where it didn't make sense anymore, right? It just wasn't operating the way it was, right? We were still having struggles, we were still having problems. They weren't major problems, but in order to get to that next level, we had to get a grenade and say, okay, hold on, this isn't working. Blow it up, take the risk, maybe definitely lose some money, right? But in order for us to take 10 steps forward, we had to take 5 steps backwards.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately what we did. And we blew it up, we stepped back, the way we train people, how we're training them, the pay structure. Now we're starting to make bigger leaps forward now.
And it's going better now.
And it's going better.
Okay.
I got a question. The grenade, whose idea, whose concept was the change? And what made you come to the conclusion on how to go about the change?
So
I think,
Go ahead.
ultimately, I think it was an idea of mine and my sister's, who's another partner in the business, because she does all the financials, and it was just getting harder and harder. And like you guys work with commercial properties, they don't pay. Sometimes they don't pay 60 days, 90 days, 120 days.
You're chasing them down.
Sometimes it just doesn't matter.
We were talking about that yesterday, too.
Yeah.
But our technicians, obviously, or your employees, they want to be paid when payrolls due.
Yeah.
And it was becoming like harder and harder and harder to breathe. And like I said earlier, they were wanting more and more and more. And it just came to a point where we put it on paper, and it was like, if we change the structure, after meeting with lawyers and everything, if we change the structure of how we're paying them, it's going to be more beneficial to everyone in the long run. And it sucked because you have some employees that were very valuable employees, right? And you'd hope they would be on board and see the bigger picture. But unfortunately, some of them didn't. And at the end of the day, like he said, it's kind of business.
Kinda used to it.
Yeah, it's business, and you had to throw the grenade in there and take the losses to get a lot more wins for everybody in the future. Not just us, but employees too. It became like we weren't able to spread the money amongst everybody. It was just for the technicians. The office staff, other people. There was just nothing to share anymore.
Yeah.
So
You guys were running a real business. What did you want to
Right.
say? Go ahead.
I had a quick question to that, and the question was basically towards your higher end guys. How was it letting go of your higher end guys?
Oh, it hurt. It's still hurting. Like you said, we're in a reconstruction mode, and before we did it, it was a year in the talking. Like, we talked about it. Like I said, we didn't just do it and say, "Oh, we have a great idea. Let's
this
do
was a long
this."
time coming.
Yeah, it was about a year that we first discussed it, and then we met with lawyers, made sure that we're doing everything right because it's the state of California,
Yes.
and made sure we were
We've
doing
heard.
everything right, and then we kind of weighed out like, how is it going to hurt us? And timing is everything for us. Like, you have your peak season, and then you have your season where it's not so busy anymore, and you can take a loss. And we tried to launch it at the time when it was a slower season, so that when the hit came,
Makes sense.
we were able to do that restructuring.
So to be very clear, fellas, I was against it, right? Because just because you get to the point where like, fuck, man, it's working.
Yeah.
What we're doing is
You don't wanna
working.
take that step
You know what I'm
backwards.
saying? And much credit to her and my sister-in-law, where they were just like,
It's not working.
mainly her. It was like, no, dude, no. Let's sit down. Let's put all the numbers on paper.
Is it
right?
going to work in the future?
Yes. So ultimately, we were bleeding, bro. We were bleeding. We were starting to bleed.
I was
right?
talking to
It wasn't
Danny.
making no sense anymore.
Margins, right? So you can gross revenue whatever, but what's left after expenses and overhead?
Yeah.
And that was the main thing. It's like for me and my sister, who really sat down with the numbers and everything. For us, it made sense, but to a person in his position, is like it's working. The machine's going, and we have work on the schedule every day. Where he doesn't see like the actual profit to loss type of things. Like it's just money's coming in, and the schedules has a lot of money on it, and that's the part that he sees. But internally, we were seeing like we can do the same amount of money
Behind the curtain.
but have a lot less, expenses going out,
Yeah.
where we can be a lot more profitable. And it's going to take a hit. So to answer your question, I mean, we kind of knew what we were going into before we did it. And after we, sat down with paper and everything, we said, okay, this is the time we're going to launch it. And we were prepared to take about a 6-month hit.
Yeah.
Because obviously, if you're going to let go of the majority of your technicians, there was 1 or 2 that stayed, loyal. But if you're going to let go of everybody or take the loss of them choosing to stay or go, for better words, you had to know that it was going to hurt.
Yeah.
Right, financially. So we sat down and we said, we're going to take a hit. We're going to know that we can't schedule as much. We're going to know that we're going to have to say no to clients in order to get to where we had seasoned technicians again that can do quality work.
We went from being able to schedule, like if someone called today, Tuesday, right?
You have them there
Wednesday,
tomorrow.
We would have someone there tomorrow. Now we're going from today till next week Tuesday is our soonest.
Yeah.
Right? So what happens with all the people who are used to that?
Yeah.
Naturally they're gonna they gotta go somewhere else. Right? So ultimately that was the hurt, right? Because we built a reputation over the last six years was let's get done now. Get done now.
So I actually did something similar, and I was saving it for the podcast, but we've talked about it a little bit before. So I had a project where this happened, and I recognized it. It's like, are we working? Yes. But we're overpaying the fuck out of
Our guys.
the production, the guys. And after the project hit, I realized that trying to cash flow a project that scale the way I was doing it was hurting the business. So we let everybody go except for one guy. And I changed the pay scale on him. I was like, look, I can't pay you this. I could pay you this. And it's going to be hourly now. And it's not. So what we used to do is we'd pay people per day. So it was like, if you show up and you do what's on the schedule, you will get a guaranteed this. But sometimes you show up and it's just a tub. Sometimes it's a tub and tile and maybe a shower or whatever. And that worked until it didn't, right? Until, you have 3 or 4 guys, and then suddenly Miss Jones cancels, and you have the guy working on a 2-day job.
Yeah.
Now, what? You don't have anything for him? Or he comes in, and let's say he comes in to work, and that job now is 16 hours you're paying him for something that might have moved or canceled or rescheduled. And now you have to pay a guy, 16 hours worth of work in a job that really just takes 9 hours. Like, it started becoming very convoluted, especially I recognized it with the project early on, because what happened was the hotel was pulling the rug from under us. Like, hey, I know you're here already, but these rooms aren't ready for you. So what did I do? The guy showed up.
Yeah.
So now I've said it before. I lost over $100,000 trying to keep people afloat so we could finish the project. It's paying them to do bullshit shop work. I didn't have the residual work. Now would be probably a different situation because I could probably pull things together and make it happen. But it was tough, and
That would have ate at your margins anyways.
it would have. But that was just to be clear, it was a third of what we had liquid that went to doing that. And like you said, some of these guys would get upset that I was just putting them to do shop work, like it was beneath them. Some of these people, they get greedy, they become assholes. It's like, hey, bro, it's better than nothing. They don't see the struggle going on the other side. So
Nor do they care.
They never will.
They never will. So we brought it back down to one, and we rebuilt around him. Yeah. And sometimes you just got to do it. It's a difficult decision, but you have to do it.
I got a question from Michelle. Now that you guys have changed the employment structure, are you deciding to change how much you charge per job? So if you're going to reduce production, are you going to increase prices?
So we always increase prices every year. I mean, that's just something that we do just in the industry. And I wish everybody in the industry would do this, because if we all stuck together and did it, like, it would make it so much easier for everybody, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so I mean, we always.
That's just standard.
That's just standard. Yeah. Okay. But I think we started believing in ourselves a little bit better and knowing that risks are okay. It's scary to take a risk, especially with what we did. And it ultimately, like, we've gotten a little bit braver with what our worth is. You know, before we would do, like, you know, sometimes we have properties that we would do the tub for like $400, and now we're like, that's craziness. Like, why would we do that?
So, you know, I had a realization that was similar, and I had to really sit down and think, like, is it worth it? And you know what I thought about? If Susan down the road said, I'll pay you $400 for a tub in a month, would you say yes? No. And these apartments and hotels will wait a month around with your money.
And Susan is probably the one that's not going to pay you.
Yeah.
Susan's probably the one that you're going to have to write off because you gave her that tub. I would rather have the people that don't balk at what I'm charging, or maybe balk a little bit, but that, you know, can pay the bill than do work for these people that are, you know, trying to haggle you and get the price down.
And at the same time, they won't pay you.
And then they, you know, they take like 300 days to pay. I mean, we have some clients that are still on the payables right now that you did that for in the past, and, you know, unfortunately, it's 365 days later and they're still not paying you.
Yep.
And in the refinishing industry, your hands are tied. Like, what are you going to do? I don't have your social security number. I'm not realistically going to go look for the owner of.
But you will.
She will. It becomes personal to me, but I have different issues.
When I tell you she's my hawk, she is my hawk, bro. So, man, you know, we were talking off air. So
repeat the question, because I think it was a little hard for her.
Oh, I'm sorry. Say again.
I want to talk about how Michelle's taking over the rings at Alliance.
So great question, brother. So for the last 3 years, I've been really focused on helping Ace grow.
Yep.
Right. So I think, overly involved with Alliance. Right. You know, very passionate. Right. Very. Oh, we got to do this, man. We're not doing enough. You know, I don't care what you're doing. You got to do more. You know, how come you're not going? You're at work at 8 o'clock. You should be there at 7 o'clock. Right. Driving her crazy, driving my sister-in-law crazy, driving everybody around me crazy. But for the last 2 years, man, you know, I've been focused with my other partners with Ace, and Ace is really, like, literally the rocket that's taken off to the moon. And I literally, not me, but her, took all the responsibilities away for Alliance, and she's really gravitated to the leadership, right? Man, you know, with the other partners, you know, with the guys, setting up all the structure. So this is my partner in crime, right? So before I talk to my other partners, I literally just go straight to her, like, hey, how's this doing? What's this doing? You know, this is my input, right? Whether you take it or not, this is what I would do. This is how I would do it. She takes that and she takes it over to the meeting over there with Alliance and implements it. So she's taken over all the leadership.
That's a beautiful dynamic, because so, like, I talked about to him, but I haven't talked about it on the podcast much, as I'm finally being able to step out of the role of, you know, being heavily into the operations, into the lead flow, into all that stuff, because I want to build something else.
Yeah.
You know, I still want this. I still obviously want to be involved in it, but you can't necessarily have 100% of your attention on this, because this other thing requires more attention right now. And so you might have been blinded by some of the issues that she saw, because you have this thing going and it's going good, could be better.
Yes.
But this thing over here is going super well.
Yeah.
So in the grand scheme of things, everything just is good.
Everything's great.
But you got another set of eyes on it, and you're like, wait, this isn't sustainable.
You know, and I think before I was trying like my hardest to do both, bro. I was trying to be here, I was trying to be there, I was trying to do this, I was trying to do that.
Stretching yourself.
You know, causing more aggravation to myself.
Yeah.
Until finally she's like, dude, just.
Yeah, I think like you and him are very similar. He's an entrepreneur. So his mind is like constantly going. I joke with him all the time, like I'm gonna do a TikTok, I'm an entrepreneur's wife, right?
Yeah.
Because like I could get up at 4 and it's still not early enough. Why don't you get up at 2? You know, it's like constant. And sometimes I think with him, his mind is constantly going. He's constantly having all these ideas that he wants to, I tell him like, your hand in the pudding. Your hand is in everybody's pudding, and it doesn't need to be there. And it causes chaos everywhere.
I'm going to tell you why, though. Because, and you were part of it too, but these things are our babies.
And he tells me that all the time, and I tell him, but you pick partners for a reason.
For sure.
At some point, you need to trust that we're doing what we need to do, and sometimes you come in and you want, because in your head your idea is better because it's your baby, you want to switch up what that person's doing or what their role is, and then it just creates chaos for everybody.
Yeah, for sure.
And especially with him trying to do 2 businesses, like he's got his hands full with Ace and he's got his hands full with Alliance, and in terms you're not being as effective as you could be.
Exactly.
So you're stretching yourself so thin that you're doing everything, lack of better terms, half-assed.
Yeah.
Because you're so thin in every department that you're just not being as effective as you could be.
So really quick before you have your point. So this is like for a lot of people out there that are owner operators that want to fucking do everything themselves. I always say one thing suffers in service of the other. If you're spraying the bathtub and not answering the phone, you're not doing as good, and you might feel like
your lead.
Yeah, you might feel like you're balancing everything, but you're not.
Yeah.
Something is suffering in service of the other thing. So that's 100% right. What were you going to go ahead and say?
You took the words out of my mouth, brother.
Yeah.
So it's the first step to building a legacy, right?
Yeah.
So like it's the first hand down or hand over of responsibility and
Of real power.
Yeah.
You know.
You know, what I want to, man, you know, like for me, like, I said it before, man, like I want to win.
Yep.
I want to be a part of a team that is winning. Understand what it takes to win, right? Like I listen to some of these guys on the Facebook page that we follow. Like I see some of these guys are still owner operators, right?
20 years in.
But what I'm saying is, dude, technically that's a job, bro. You're not.
You own a job.
You own your job at that point, man. It's like, well, what are you doing to get out of that, right? And a lot of people are like, well, I just don't want to hire nobody. You know, I don't want to deal with the headache. But that's part of it.
They don't want to take a risk.
Part of getting to this level and then getting to the next level is dealing with that, man.
Yep.
Having to hire people, having to supervise them, having to manage them, having to lead them, right? It is part of it.
You know, you guys were talking about Miracle Method earlier, and we all know, we've heard it. Oh, I got my tub done by Miracle Method, and it sucked, and I paid this much money. You know, obviously, they're like professionalism and quality of work is inherent. What gets Miracle Method to the level that they're a giant franchise? It's the other things that everybody else is failing at, bro. They didn't answer the phone. I'm calling the next person. They're, you know, this person is taking 3 days to do something that should take 1. You know, they don't have a QC guy going behind and finding the things that might need to be addressed before the customer. Though these are all things that are difference makers, especially in commercial. So, you know, we don't have a dedicated QC guy, but today is QC day at a project because it just wouldn't have worked any other way. There was an issue, it needs to be addressed, and we're getting it addressed. But some of these guys, you know, if you're a one-man show and you're booked out for 3 months, what are you going to do?
You know, the first thing I would tell anybody paying attention that's a reglazing is you have to build a system.
Yep.
You have to. If you don't have a system, then you're never going to be able to get to the next level, right? Michelle and I are here because we're here and the business is still running. It's still making money. It's still being profitable. There's people out there. We have a technician. We have multiple technicians. We have someone answering the phone. We have someone doing the quality control, right? We have someone sending us email if it's higher than their pay grade to answer any of those questions. But in order to get to the next level, in order to compete with the miracle method, you have to develop a system.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, what differentiates us is the systems. You know, like at the end of the day, what we're offering people is a solution, right? But the solution doesn't begin and end at making my tub look pretty. The other guys aren't answering the phone. What's the solution? Someone's going to fucking answer the phone. Like, we're not getting enough commercial work. We're going to have somebody go out there and get the fucking commercial work. 100%. Like, and if you're not firing on all cylinders and you're wondering why in 20 years, you know, you're going to retire, you know, off Social Security, living in a rented room or some shit, it's because you never thought about the other side. Some of these guys are so focused on making the bathtub look like a fucking Lamborghini that they don't sit back and realize that you need to be doing these things to scale and to grow, or else you're just going to be stuck. And a lot of these people are afraid of risk. And what I said and what we were talking about in the car ride over here is, you know, like, what's the worst that can happen? You'll still be at zero. So, but the crime is not trying. And that's why people...
That's a big crime.
They live with regret. You know, I should have done this, and I should have done that, and I should have gone to that networking event. And it's like, the only person that kept it was you. And at that point, who's your biggest competitor? Yourself.
And that hurts more than literally anything else.
Of course. So, you know, like realistically, and me and Carlos are cool. But Carlos, if he wouldn't have turned it on how he's been turning it on this year, would be one of those. And he knows it. He talks about it all the time. It's like, I cannot believe how deep I was into this. I'm not worth that much. I'm not, you know, like, who the hell would want to listen to me talk about a bathtub?
Self-soaking.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, he would have ended up being one of those fucking guys. But all it takes is going and taking the fucking risk. And most of the time, you live, you learn, you do it a couple times, and it'll start to work out for you. But that same risk goes to someone like me who, you know, I look at you and I'm like, I got to give the control to somebody else at some point.
Got to.
Because,
you can't
again,
do it all.
Exactly. I know.
Don't get me wrong, man. Like, we talk about it good now, but it still takes a while.
It's an adjustment.
It's an adjustment for me, bro.
Right?
Because I'm a hands-on dude, right? And if I feel like we're fucking losing, bro, it drives me bananas, bro.
Yeah, me too.
Right?
But I think it's important that we, like me and him, we remind each other, like, we talked about this for a year. We knew it was going to be like this.
Yeah.
Even with my partners, Crystal and Richard, I tell them all the time when we think, like, oh, God, this is the worst decision we ever made. We have to remind each other, like, we knew it was going to be like this, guys. We knew it was going to be hard. It's not going to happen overnight. Like, with risk comes time to, like, you know, get things back in order.
And for a lot of people, like, it's not just about throwing shit against the wall and letting it stick. It's calculated risk too.
So you guys understand when I say she, like, she said basically, dude, shut up.
Yeah.
I need you to believe in me, right? I need you to fucking put your hands in your pocket and just let me do what I see, right? And that was pretty much me at the beginning, like telling my other partners and her, like, hey, shut up. I know what I'm doing. Trust me, right? So when she came at me with that same ambition and that same look, like, I freaked out. But I was like, dude, if I would be terribly wrong if I stopped her from doing something that was going to benefit not just us, but the whole business in a general.
And she showed you in numbers.
And she showed me in numbers. So that's when it was hard for me to just bite my lips. But the first month after we did it, you know, we went from like averaging about 270 down to 200, right? And that was a big hit, bro. That's a big fucking hit, right? And I'm, you know, oh my God, I'm biting my nails, bro. I'm like, oh man, you know, this. But she's like, first one to say, hey, just we got to ride this wave.
Well, you know, it's,
right now we're in the slow season, right, Danny? I need you to fucking breathe, stay out of my way, and just trust that this is gonna happen, right? So our numbers for January kind of bounced up a little bit. We were anticipating a much lower drop in January. In fact, they kind of risen in comparison to what we thought we were gonna make, right? So I told her, that's when I told her, hey, I'm putting my hands up, I'm going to step back, and I'm going to let you take over the wheel.
Yep. Go
He
ahead.
still comes in every once in a while.
Well, it's interesting because me and Danny's partnership is very similar, right? So I adopted Danny's brand, which is Danny's baby, something that Danny's been building for years. And through our relationship, obviously we're not married, but we're close friends, and that's what led us to the partnership. And there's a certain level of responsibility and trust that he has in me. We talked about it off air. How do we deal with subs and not stealing contracts? And there's a certain level of trust, and I find it interesting. Like, I wonder sometimes, as Danny's partner, how he deals with that relinquish of responsibility on me representing his baby and trusting in me to uphold that brand standard or the vision. And you guys are different because although you may have started the business, and started the branding, she was there from the beginning. I walked into Danny's baby already developed, right? And he had to make a decision when I approached him on the partnership on whether or not to trust me and whether or not to relinquish some responsibility. And me and Danny are in constant communication, bro. I uphold his business like it's my own because it truly is.
And bro, that right there, that's like 1 in a million, bro.
Yeah.
Right? You don't get that. I don't give a funky chicken where you come from, bro. But what you just said, that's like a 1 in a million person right there, bro.
Well, that was my question to you off air. It was like, how do you guys trust each other? Because, we wish in California we could find somebody in the Bay Area that would be like, hey, I'll give you some extra work. You give us some extra work when you have it. We'd love to work together. But
I think for
the
us,
problem is we can't find anybody that
Gives you that sort of trust.
that they'll just steal the contract right from under you, and you're just like,
So I think it was just a right place, right time kind of scenario.
Yeah.
We've told the story, but we met on this podcast. So something told Jonathan to get his ass over here, right? Or, back in Orlando.
I'm tired of spraying fucking tubs.
And after the conversation, we got to talking, and I really it was right after I did my grenade. I fucking knew everything. Then I come over, and I get a call from someone in Puerto Rico, and I land a project worth $93K, and I need people, because I have learned the lesson of all your eggs in one basket. I don't want to send my whole operation over there. I was back down to, at that point, we had already gotten my second tech again. So we were building back up, but I needed the people. And he wanted that experience with a commercial job. So we talked about it. We came to a number that made sense, and I got to really know him. So I got to
The number didn't matter to me as much as the opportunity.
And he told me
I needed
that.
someone to gamble on me.
The building.
Exactly.
The building is what's important.
Yeah, I needed him to gamble on me, and I think our morals aligned.
Yeah.
And our values aligned.
That's beautiful.
So we talked a lot, and like you said, it's a 1 in a million.
That's faith right there, man. Faith just happening. Bro.
What are the chances that I'm the only one that does the Bathtub podcast, and he's an hour away?
1%.
Bro, and it just made sense, and his crew was available. And so, I got to know him, I got to know his family, and I see the type of people there are. There are people who are go-getters and people that make shit happen. And his family's like that.
I'm a big person on manifesting, bro.
Yep.
Right? I am, man. My whole life, you know what I mean? I can go into detail, but I think that happened because you worked your way out of it, bro.
Yeah.
You grinded.
Well,
you went through your ups and your downs and your questioning and your I want to give up and fuck, this is not working. And
put that foot in work.
You put in that work, so just bam, marriage. It just happens, bro. I believe that there's a reason for that, man. That's awesome.
And I think about often, like, what if I didn't start the podcast and I didn't have the people and I just, would have had to, what would it could have been a catastrophe. I come back, momentum in sales, telling every customer for 3 weeks because you literally have nobody that you can't serve them, and then you come back. Well, then all the money you made is done. Yeah. All the money you made over there is fucked because now you come back to nothing. And you got to rebuild momentum, and it's really hard. So, I just got to know him better, and eventually, we were talking. I was helping him with his business. Before
we ever discussed partnering, It was friendship and mentorship.
Yeah.
Right. So,
on both sides.
Yeah, on both sides, because we were in Puerto Rico, nights after the project, talking about my children and where I want to be in life, and he's talking to me about his girlfriend and where they want to be in life and this legacy that he wants to build. And I believe we really took the step forward when Danny came on the podcast. Right, and we were looking at where we could be one day, and me and Danny
Why don't you guys partner up was exactly what he said.
He did say it.
Yeah, because we were doing the podcast thing together. You were help guiding me through the marketing aspect, which I had no experience in at the time.
Which, mind you, he was in my area because he didn't know how to hone in his service area.
Yeah,
I was helping a competitor.
We were serving, and we still do, because this journey ain't over. I service 60-mile territory.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you no.
Yeah.
If you're gonna hire us, we're gonna fucking drive to wherever you need us to get that tub done, because we have to make it, right? So right now we're by no means on my end solidified, right? So we're still grinding, we're still hustling, but I took the opportunity to approach Danny, and after you came on the podcast, and it made sense. I was like, bro, I can either hold on to this vision that I'm gonna accomplish all this by myself and I don't need help, or which I could do. I believe in myself. It's only a matter of time. Yeah. It was just let's get to the fucking point. I was like, Danny, you built a legacy and you built a brand that I think has potential. And I was like, and I bring something to the table. I got guys. I have experience. I was like, let's partner. Let's do this shit. And Danny thought about it, and then I could see the hesitation, because you're handing over your child to this. In simpler terms, some fucking subcontractor.
Bro,
you know what I mean?
I hate to interrupt you, but I gotta use the restroom.
Yeah, you're good.
No, let's take it. Go ahead.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
Let's talk to Michelle.
Well, we're also 36 minutes in. If you want to cut it, we can start. Yeah, we'll start a new one.
Wait. Actually, the questions are gonna go for her.
Okay.
I got some questions for you.
Oh, no.
Hey, wait, real quick, Jonathan, can you move that table so that the boom arm is at the back, so that it's not? Yeah, it's covering your face a little bit.
So this question is actually from my wife,
That's good.
and her question is, what employees would you never want to be without to run a profitable business?
You're
Marketing,
talking-
financial, accountant, or do you have a system set in place that handles all that for you? I think that last aspect of it was already answered, but what would you not be able to live without? Marketing, financial assistant, or what person that when you guys threw that grenade, there was nothing, you couldn't get rid of this person?
Well, obviously you can't function without technicians, right? Technicians
Absolutely.
are your main core. But I think maybe our office staff.
I would probably agree with that.
Our office staff that's one thing that all of our partners have agreed with. Just answering that phone.
If you can't answer
and
that phone,
having
yeah.
somebody that can take the order, that can help you right away, that can make sure that you feel like you're taken care of. And a lot of the times there's people that will call and be like, well, I just got a quote for, blah, 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 like $200 cheaper.
You got to
than
fight for that, yeah.
And I'm like, well then, respectfully go with them, but you're not going to get somebody that's going to answer your phone. You're not going to get somebody that's going to go back the next day. You're not
Above
going to
and
get
beyond.
somebody that you're not going to be able to get a hold of.
Yeah.
Go with that person. If they gave you a lifetime warranty, high five.
You're providing real value.
Yeah, we're providing value to you. And our office girls are amazing. Like Natalie on top of everything, and Adriana is just her right-hand person. So
Shout out Natalie and Adriana.
yeah. I would say, our office staff. Because it allows us to do what we need to do too.
The other important stuff, because it's all important.
Right, because there's always something on the back end that
Like what you
nobody
said to me
sees.
off air, you need that. At some point, you have to know that it can't all be techs. It can't all be guys in the field producing. There has to be a management structure, and you have to be willing to take the cost to manage the operation.
Right.
Yeah.
And one of the oldest mantras in business is that time kills deals. If you let people float around when they hit you,
sure.
they will. Some people they'll go for the first person that answered the phone because they called 3 people in your area who didn't pick up.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be the difference one. You want to be the different one. You want to be the one that stands out.
I've
Honestly,
lost
if
leads
people
because of
don't-
that.
And if people don't want to pay that, is that really the client you want?
Exactly.
If you're going to have somebody that's going to keep you on the phone haggling over $200,
You can say bye to them. Yeah.
those are just the type of people that are going to keep you on that job site again and again and again because they're just not happy
Picky.
at the end of the
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I mean, to answer her question, the office staff.
In other words, Liz, you're so important.
She is.
Yep,
I mean,
exactly.
Oh, yeah,
people that care, people that like to answer the phone, people that have the company in mind answering that phone.
Yeah, they're invested.
Invested, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of those. Like, it's one of those undervalued things. A lot of people don't think about that, But when it comes to it, that's the first line of communication is the office people.
For sure. They're the first person they hear.
Exactly.
And usually the last person they hear.
Exactly.
And if it's a new person, that's molding the perception of the brand, right? So it's really that is something that's really important that people should be taking into account.
So in other words, your girls are very important.
Absolutely.
My girls are very important. Crystal's very important, right? Because Crystal's doing all the and now Alex he just jumped in on it. So yeah, I absolutely feel you on that.
You've been listening to the Bathtub Refinishing Podcast. If you liked what you heard, be sure to keep up with the Bathtub Guys on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, or visit BathTubGuys.com for more. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.